There is someone who has been trying to find the right moment, not the right words necessarily, not the perfect opening or the ideal circumstance or the version of this that feels completely safe and completely certain before they move. The right moment, the moment that feels like enough, like the gap between what they are holding inside and what they have been willing to say out loud has finally become too wide to maintain, too costly to keep bridging with silence, too heavy to carry into another day without doing something about it. And that moment is approaching faster than you might expect, closer than it has been at any point since whatever created the distance between you. Something is shifting on their end, something internal, a decision being made at a level beneath the level where decisions are consciously made, a threshold being crossed, a weight that has been accumulating for long enough that the simple act of continuing to carry it has become more difficult than the risk of setting it down in your direction. They are getting ready to reach out, and I need you to be ready to receive it. Not braced against it, not so defended by the time it arrives that the reaching cannot find you, open, present, ready for what is coming in a way that allows it to actually land when it does. Um, Let me tell you about the thinking, because this is the part that I want you to understand most completely. The part that I feel most specifically and most clearly when I sit with the energy of this person and their relationship to you, they cannot stop thinking about you. I know that phrase gets used casually. I know it is the kind of thing that can sound like a nice thing to say without necessarily meaning anything precise. So I want to tell you what it actually means in this case. What it looks like from the inside of their experience. They think about you first, not always consciously, not always in a way that announces itself as thinking about you specifically, but you are the reference point, the thing their mind returns to as its default destination when it is not actively occupied with something else. When the task is finished and the distraction ends and the conversation is over and the noise of the day quiets and the mind goes where it actually wants to go, it goes to you with a regularity that they have stopped trying to fully explain to themselves, with a specificity that tells me this is not general longing or abstract wishing. This is about you, your specific face, your specific way of being in the world, specific things you said, and specific ways you made them feel, and specific moments between you that lodged themselves in their memory with a permanence that time has not diminished. Those moments live in them. They surface uninvited. They arrive at inconvenient times, in the middle of things that are supposed to be fully absorbing, in the quiet before sleep when the defenses are lowest, in the random spaces of an ordinary day when a song or a smell or a phrase or a quality of light triggers something, and suddenly you are there in their mind with a vividness that surprises them even after all this time. Even after however long it has been, you remain vivid. You remain present. You remain the thing they return to, whether they mean to or not. I want to describe what has been happening to their feelings, because feelings do not stay static. They do not simply exist in the form they arrived in and remain unchanged through time and distance and everything that happens in between. They evolve. They deepen or they diminish They clarify or they become more confused. They respond to the accumulation of experience and reflection and the ongoing life of the person carrying them, and what has happened to the feelings this person carries about you is that they have deepened, not diminished, not faded with the distance the way you might have hoped or feared they would. Deepened, which is the more surprising and more significant outcome, because conventional wisdom says that absence creates fading. That time and distance and the accumulation of other experiences gradually dilutes the feeling until it becomes a trace of itself, a memory rather than a living thing. But some feelings do not respond to that logic. Some feelings are not diluted by time. They are distilled by it, reduced to their essential quality, clarified of everything that was confusion or circumstance or the noise of proximity, and revealed as something purer and more specific and more certain than it was at the beginning. That is what has happened to their feelings about you. The distance that was supposed to create forgetting created clarity instead. The time that was supposed to produce detachment produced certainty instead. They know more clearly now what they feel than they did when you were closer. And that clarity is exactly what has been building the pressure that is now approaching its release point. What you are about to receive from them is not the confused version of their feeling. It is the distilled version, the one that has been refined by everything that came after. The one that knows what it is and is finally ready to say so. Let me talk about what they have been doing with all of this internally, because it would be easy to hear that someone cannot stop thinking about you and assume that the path from that to reaching out is simple, that if the feeling is strong enough, the action follows naturally. And for some people, that is how it works. But this person is not built that way. They process, they consider, they turn things over and examine them from multiple angles and try to anticipate outcomes before they commit to actions. They do not reach out impulsively. They reach out when they have arrived at something they can stand behind. When the internal work is complete enough that what they say carries the weight of genuine conviction rather than the lightness of an impulse they might later want to retract. And that internal work has been happening for longer than, in the private interior of their experience, without any signal to you that it was in progress. They have been asking themselves the real questions, not the easy surface ones, the ones that require honesty about what they want and what they are willing to risk and what it would mean to reach out and what it would mean to continue not reaching out. They have been sitting with those questions long enough and thoroughly enough that the answers have become clear. Not perfectly comfortable, clear. And clarity, when it finally arrives after a long process, has a momentum to it. It does not sit still. It moves toward expression, toward the action that it was building toward all along. The internal work is finishing. The clarity is settling. And the expression of it is what is heading toward you right now. I want to speak specifically about the form the reaching out is going to take, because I think having a sense of what to watch for is going to help you not miss it when it arrives, especially if it arrives in a form that is more subtle than you might be expecting. Some of you are anticipating a dramatic gesture, a significant communication that announces itself clearly as a significant communication, something that requires no interpretation, something that says explicitly what it means without leaving room for you to wonder. And for some of you, that is exactly what is coming. A clear, direct, unambiguous expression of what this person has been holding. Something that does not require you to read between any lines, because there are no lines to read between. Just the thing itself, said plainly, offered with the particular courage of someone who decided that the cost of not saying it finally exceeded the risk of saying it. But for others of you, the initial reach will be quieter than that. It will be a message that sounds ordinary on the surface, a check-in, a forwarded thing that reminded them of you, a casual reference to something shared between you, something that could be read as simple friendliness if you were inclined to read it that simply, but that carries in its texture, in its timing, in the specific way it is constructed, the unmistakable quality of something more than friendliness. The quality of a door being slightly opened, of a hand being slightly extended, of someone testing the temperature of the space between you before committing to the fuller expression that is waiting just behind the initial reach. Pay attention to both possibilities, the dramatic and the subtle, because the content of the message matters less than the fact of it. The fact that they reached at all is the information, and how you respond to that reach is going to determine what comes next. Let me tell you about what is happening in them in the moments right before they reach out. Because I think understanding that specific experience is going to help you receive what is coming with the fullness it deserves. In the moments just before they send the message or make the call or find themselves standing in front of you saying the thing, there is fear. Real, located, specific fear. Not the vague anxiety of someone who's generally nervous. The particular fear of someone who is about to make themselves genuinely vulnerable to a specific person whose response they cannot control or predict with certainty. The fear of exposure, of being seen wanting something, of having what they feel be known when what they feel puts them at risk of rejection, at risk of the response not matching the offering, at risk of having said the real thing and finding that the real thing was not received the way they hoped. That fear is present, and they're going to do it anyway. That is the thing I want you to understand. Not that they are fearless, that they are choosing to act in spite of the fear, choosing to extend themselves toward you despite the very real possibility that the extension could be declined. That takes something. That takes the particular kind of courage that is only available to someone who has decided that what they feel is more important than the protection of not saying it. When the reach arrives, when you feel the weight of what it cost them to send it, honor that cost, not by reciprocating something you do not feel, but by receiving what they offer with the care it deserves, by not minimizing it, by not deflecting it with humor or casualness to protect yourself from the weight of what is being offered, by letting it land and responding from the truest version of what you actually feel. Now I want to speak to you, not about them, about you, because this reading is not only about what is coming from their direction, it is equally about what is happening in you. And what is happening in you is something I feel very specifically and very clearly you have been holding something to, with a discipline and a consistency that has required more effort than it probably looks like from the outside. You have been managing your thoughts about this person, keeping the thinking within bounds that feel safe, not letting yourself go fully into what you feel, because going fully into it in the absence of any signal from them that the feeling is mutual has seemed like a form of self-harm, like pouring yourself into something that has no visible receptacle. And so you have been careful, measured, allowing yourself a controlled amount of the feeling while keeping the rest at a managed distance. There have been moments when the control slipped, when the thinking went further than you meant to let it go, when the feeling came through at full volume before you could turn it back down. And in those moments, you probably redirected as quickly as you could, told yourself you were being impractical, reminded yourself of all the reasons why going fully into this feeling was not wise. And you mostly succeeded. You have mostly kept the lid on. But I want to tell you something about the energy underneath that lid, about what is living there in the space that your careful management has been containing. It is not small. What you feel about this person, the real version, the unmanaged version, the version that exists in the moments when the control slips before you can reinstate it, is not a small thing. It is not something that is going to be satisfied by a half-received, cautiously managed response to whatever they reach out with. It is something that deserves the same fullness of expression that they are about to bring to you. The same courage, the same willingness to be seen wanting something. And when their reach arrives, I am asking you to give it that fullness, to stop managing, to let what you actually feel be what guides your response rather than what feels safest. I want to address something that I think is sitting in a lot of you right now. A question that has probably been present since the first few sentences of this reading. Is this the person I think it is? And I want to answer that as honestly as I can. You know who your mind went to when I started describing someone who cannot stop thinking about you. You know which name surfaced first, which face appeared before you had time to consider whether it was the right one. And that first involuntary, uncurated surfacing is more reliable than any subsequent analysis you might do, because the subsequent analysis is going to be influenced by hope and fear and the desire to be right and the fear of being wrong. The first surfacing was none of those things. It was simply your knowing. The part of you that processes this kind of information at a level beneath conscious deliberation and delivers its answer before the deliberation can begin. Trust that answer. Not because I am guaranteeing that it is correct in the way a logical proof is correct, but because that involuntary first response carries information that the careful, analytical, protective mind does not always have access to. Your gut knows, your gut has known, and the reaching that is coming is going to confirm what your gut has been telling you in the quiet moments when you let yourself listen to it before talking yourself out of what it said. Let me tell you what the reaching out is going to do to the energy between you, because the act of reaching is not just a communication. It is not simply information being transferred from one person to another. It is an energetic event, and energetic events have consequences that extend well beyond the moment of the event itself. When this person reaches out, when the message arrives or the call comes or the encounter happens, something is going to shift in the field between you. The holding pattern that has been the structure of your connection, the careful maintenance of a particular distance, the unspoken agreement to keep things at a particular level, is going to be disturbed, not destructively, in the way that a still surface is disturbed by something true breaking through it, creating movement where there was stillness, creating warmth where there was careful cool, creating the conditions for something real to happen, where there was the management of appearances. That disturbance is going to feel significant in your body before you have fully processed it in your mind. Your nervous system is going to register it as a shift before your thoughts have caught up to what is happening. There will be a quality of something unlocking, of a tension you have been holding so long that it became background, suddenly releasing, of a breath you did not know you were holding. Finally, being let go. Notice that feeling when it arrives. Let it tell you what it is telling you, because that feeling is your confirmation that what is happening is real. Here is what I want to say about the timing of all of this, because timing is always the question underneath everything else, not whether, when. And what I can tell you about the when is this: it is sooner than the part of you that has been protecting itself is prepared for, which means you may need to do some preparing. Not extensive preparation, not a major internal overhaul before you can be ready to receive this. Simple preparation, the kind that is really just a decision to be available when the reach arrives, to not be so far inside your own protection that their reaching cannot find you, to not be so committed to appearing unbothered that you cannot let it be visible that you are bothered, in the best way, in the way that the right thing arriving always bothers you, in the way that something you have been waiting for without admitting you were waiting for it, finally showing up. Move something in you that has been still. Decide now to let yourself be moved by it when it comes. Decide now to receive it with your full self rather than the managed partial version. Decide now to let the reaching reach you all the way, without the protective buffer, without the immediate translation into something safer, just you being reached and letting it matter that someone reached, because it does matter. And the version of you that is willing to let it matter is the version of you that this person has been unable to stop thinking about since the very first moment they encountered you. I want to close with something that I think is the most important thing I could say. More important than anything I have described about them or their feelings or the mechanics of what is approaching. More important even than the timing or the form the reaching will take. Here it is. You are someone worth reaching for. Not in the general, everyone has value kind of way. In the specific way. In the way that this particular person who has had time and distance and the full perspective of absence to reassess has arrived at a very clear and very deliberate conclusion that you are worth the risk of reaching, worth the vulnerability of saying the real thing, worth the discomfort of not knowing how the reach will be received, worth overcoming the fear that has been keeping the feeling contained, worth doing the thing that the protective part of them has been arguing against for as long as the feeling has been building. They have weighed all of it. The risk and the cost and the uncertainty and the possibility of an outcome that does not go the way they hope, and they have arrived at the conclusion that reaching toward you is worth all of it. That is not a small thing. That is someone telling you through the act of reaching, rather than through words, that what you are and what you carry and what exists between you is significant enough to be worth the vulnerability of honest pursuit. Let yourself receive that, not just the message when it comes, the meaning underneath it. The meaning that says you are the kind of person that someone cannot stop thinking about, that someone chooses deliberately and with full awareness of the risk to reach for. You have always been that person, and what is coming is simply someone finally finding the courage to tell you so.